at the YEP Area C, we have been thinking we constantly think of how can we bring this YEP approach and methodology, which is implemented in so many communities in Europe already. How can we bring it to new communities? We also were inspired by some YEP sites, including Italy, where YEP was very much focused on youth centers or youth clubs, where this was, so to speak, the starting point of YEP and doing YEP. And then we also have been, since 2015, been implementing a project which is called Build Your Future, and we've been working with entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship approaches with different partners, and we did that with an Erasmus Plus strategic partnership program. So all this together led us to think of a new project idea for a new application in this context of Erasmus Plus strategic partnerships. And we came up with this project. 3 stages, 3 Ps, 3 modules, which we go into in a minute. Before that, we thought and discussed this in Turin at the partner meeting. We thought there's many organizations, partners, who are not familiar with YEP, who are not doing YEP apart from Slovakia and Italy, but who have very likely have a very common values, common goals, and therefore we thought it is very important in Turin to get together and to define the common ground. The common ground of PPP is crucial because we all need to have as a starting point common goals for this project, and we discussed this, we did group works, and came basically to this conclusion of defining these common goals and the common working principles. So these goals, as you can see here, they are also in your manuals, are the result of Turin, basically. There are 5 goals: youth participation and empowerment, active citizenship, individual growth and development, so learning, basically, of individuals, community empowerment and partnership, and inclusion and social cohesion. You have seen this in the guidebook, or in the yes, in the guidebook. Is it called the guidebook?
Yeah.
Yes, because we changed that name 3 times. So you have also seen the working principles, where these goals are declined into working principles. I'm not going to read them all. They are on page 5. So for youth, just as an example, for youth participation, young people identify their needs, develop projects and implement them, receiving feedback. For, I don't know, for community empowerment partnership, one working principle is working together in partnership is fostered, and the members of the community are actively involved in the process. So you have read this, I hope at least, and especially for those, and also for those who were not in Turin, but are we agreeing on these common goals? I mean, we already agreed on them in Turin, but now we also wrote them, put them together, and are we on the same page? Or is there comments or questions on this? Because this is, as I said, this is the base of the whole project. So, 15 minutes left for the cycle. So you've seen this cycle on the walls in 10 times in the workbooks, in the exercise book. It's something you are already familiar with, but I'm just gonna go through this to get again an overview of the whole 2 years project. And there are 2 levels, as you can see. There's the cycle of change, You've seen this in the guidebook, and we've discussed this. This is based on the YEP approach and methodology. This is where this is based on, and it has been adapted to this project. The bubbles, the stages are the same, but we had to basically do an exercise on fitting them into 3 stages, 3 modules, and in a total of 2 years program. And here's the results. The second stage, or the second level, is here at the bottom, is the intellectual outputs, which are products we have to basically produce in the context of this Erasmus Plus project. So we get money from the European Commission to implement this project, and what we have to deliver at the end are intellectual outputs. And each partner also gets money to work on these intellectual outputs. Identifying your community is a very important step as well. We added, actually it's not originally there in the YEP cycle, but we thought it's very important here, and we will have an exercise later where you present basically what is this geographical zone of implementation or intervention you have decided on, where do you want to implement this project. Then establishing a stakeholder circle, you also know this one, and we discussed it a lot. It's a very crucial step, because it is all based on partnership, and the stakeholder circle is basically a group who will implement this project. So it's young people at the forefront, but it's also community stakeholders, NGOs, the church, the municipality, civil society, whoever is interested in social change and in getting on board on this project is basically potentially candidate for this group. And we will do exercises later on how to form it, how to attract people and convince people that this could be an interesting project. Yes, so this is the P1 people, and also in this P1 people, this first stage is the situation analysis and the operational plan. Again, we're going to do exercises here today and tomorrow. Situation analysis, you've read it, you've heard it. We have to look at the community where we work to identify what are the needs, the issues in the community we can react upon, where we can find solutions, but not only problems and issues, but also resources, potential partners who can work with us on these issues. So the situation analysis is a very crucial step, because everything we do afterwards is based on this analysis. So it's not just random ideas or project ideas we work on. They are all based on the needs in the community and the resources and the situation in the community. And then, of course, the operational plan is the key document in this process, where this stakeholder circle, the young people and the stakeholder, basically after a long process decide, okay, these are going to be the projects we will implement in the community, which serve this higher goal of the PPP project, of achieving youth empowerment in the community, achieving community empowerment, and these 5 goals we mentioned early on. Again, there will be an intensive exercise on this where we can see how we do this in practice. Of course, the Italians know this very well because they work with this approach. In Slovakia, they do that as well. And for the others, it's maybe new, but it's not rocket science, but still it's a process with different steps which are important to also respect in a way, because we, in general, people tend to jump into project ideas, but in this operational plan there's different steps where we ask crucial questions before we jump into the projects. One is why. Why do we do these projects? What do we want to achieve? So what is the objective here? So this is what we come to this. So this is very intensive stage 1, module 1. There are more bubbles than in the other ones. That is why we also spend more time on this here in the training, on the module 1, on the stage 1. Quickly, these things, these intellectual outputs we have to deliver are community maps. We already did the homework, so you will already know very concretely what this is, but it will be, has to be done more in depth. Then community visions and plan for change is basically the operational plan. And then local training and local evaluation of that training. You, the trainers, will have to deliver a training or workshop or several trainings and workshops to basically do this with the young people and the stakeholders. So to basically work on this situation analysis, to do an operational plan. So you can either do a workshop of 2 days, or you can split it, or it's not just about a workshop. So it's a process, basically. It's training and coaching. Here again, we will look at how to implement these projects. Who are the potential partners? This second module is called partnerships. This is where we also go out to find resources for the implementation of these projects. So where can I find funding, supporters, partners, and what is also important in the whole implementation process is the monitoring, because not linked, but part of the operational plan is the monitoring and evaluation plan. And why is it important? We will talk about it, but it's crucial to actually not only evaluate your project and the cycle and the process at the very end, but to actually monitor it throughout the whole process. And we will look at the tools and the strategies of doing that. So I'm sure you're all used to implement projects, but here we will look at how we implement it based on these former stages, the situation analysis, the operation plan, and also crucial to monitor this. The final stage, or let me just look at the intellectual outputs. So again, we have a training here, a coaching linked with training, and the community hubs is basically one of the end results where we also have to show them at the commission that during this whole process, our youth club, our youth center, became something more at the end of this process. And this is the very objective also, and the aim of this whole project is that your youth club, your youth center, or your youth initiatives, by doing all this, become something more. And that will be different in each community, but the aim is that this becomes a community hub. And what do we mean by a community hub? Is a place which is very linked and focused on the community needs, the community resources, who also react on community needs, and who basically develops activities, projects, which somehow represent solutions to the community issues, the community needs, and which eventually also even develop into community services or activities which become sustainable. So that is the big question in the module 3. Of course, we evaluate at module 3 the whole the operation plan and the project, but we also ask this crucial question about, so we did this project, we organize football tournaments between Roma and non-Roma in our community, but how can we sustain this project? And linked to this question of sustainability is sustainability in financial terms, but also How can we sustain partnerships we build during the process? How can we sustain the community hub as it's as a structure, as a youth club, as a youth center? How we can sustain basically everything we do and everything we are. And this is the last stage of the project, the module 3, which is called Places. It's called Places because, as I said in the beginning, the aim is that this youth club, this youth center, becomes a community hub, a place which has a position, which is positioned in the community as some place with activities, projects which add value to what is already there, and which somehow solves also problems and issues in the community.